Welcome back to the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick, and we got Harrison and Sean with us again tonight. How we doing, fellas?
Awesome. How you doing, boys? Buddy. Baseball's back. I'm great.
Baseball is back. We got a job this summer. I'm so happy.
Great.
Oh, goodness. Long time coming. Before we get going, we got a really big show today. We have a lot of free agency and a lot of, all that other stuff to deal with today. So big action-packed show here. But just follow us on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll see when we go live. So leading off tonight, obviously the new CBA was signed. Baseball's back, and couldn't be more happier. What are your feelings about the changes that were made, that were conceded on both sides, either sides? I mean, honestly, I think the players got hosed again a little bit, but I mean, we have it back. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. It was to the point where I was getting frustrated. So whatever they agreed to, I was happy they agreed to it. I agree. I think they gave some things up, but it had to, someone had to budge and they had to meet somewhere in the middle. I don't know if it was fully in the middle, but yeah. Baseball's back. We're going to get 162 games. And I love now, with opening day being on April 7th, we're going to have all these scheduled doubleheaders. And they got rid of that 7-inning doubleheader nonsense.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
they got rid of starting runner on second base and extra innings. This is awesome. We're going to have planned doubleheaders. And I love planned doubleheaders. Scheduled doubleheaders are the best.
Love it.
So I'm excited for more of those.
I'm thrilled this is actually going to happen. That's what I'm thrilled about. There's going to be one of these. But I think when you look at the CBA that they negotiated, they did not deal with many of the major issues both sides came in talking about, which is competition, quality of the game. They did not deal with those issues. Ultimately, the players got more money, not as much as they wanted. They got some additional money in the arbitration pool for the younger players. They got some slightly better terms and some minor stuff. We got some stupid stuff like, pitch clocks and shifts or banning of the shift that I don't think is a big deal, and it's kind of a stupid item to even have to negotiate. But ultimately, the issues they wanted to deal with, they didn't deal with. The players wanted more money; they got a little bit more money. And even when this deal was approved, the 8-player executive committee from the union all voted against it, and 26 of the 30 player reps voted for it. So the executive player committee, those are the guys like Scherzer and Andrew Miller that were there every day. Every single one of those guys voted against it, saying it was a bad deal. Every other player rep said, we don't care, we're taking it, and we're playing baseball. So no, the union did not get what they wanted. The executive committee wanted to dig in further. The players said, absolutely not, let's go. And here we are.
Yeah. Let's kind of go to those, the silly things that they, they banned the shift. Now, they did not ban the shift for this year.
I was going to say, okay, yeah, that's what I was
correct. They have banned it in 2023. Now, a lot of people, this has been a very polarizing thing, on Facebook and
which I don't get why
Twitter and stuff.
It's a silly thing to be so polarizing about.
Right, I don't understand it either. But eventually, baseball would have evolved where the shift would have gone away because the hitters would have learned to go that way, beat the shift. It would have gone away. Baseball goes on cycles like that where pitchers dominate, then hitters dominate, then pitchers dominate, then that's how baseball works. But whatever, they banned it, but it's not for the summer. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then everybody was the memes about the bases being bigger were just absolutely hilarious.
I mean, I can tell you the picture that you sent in the group, the podcast chat that we have. You can only tell that it's bigger because it's next to a smaller base. If I just put the new base out and I put it at second base, no one would even be like, hey, that base looks bigger. You can't tell. You literally can't tell.
No. And I'll just love the Ricky Henderson one where he's holding it up, but the base takes up the entire picture. Yeah. There's just so many good ones. But so everyone made a lot of ado about nothing. It's It's silly.
Yeah, so let's look at, so real quick, just to mention that. So here's an actual image. So that's the difference in the base size.
Everybody was losing their minds.
I mean,
about this.
literally, we're talking about a base that, from a distance, nobody's ever going to know is different. And all this is going to do is make it a little bit safer to slide in, give the first base a little bit more breathing room, and help prevent players, especially at second base, from sliding through it. All it's going to do. Yeah. But it really is not a significantly larger base. It is not, like a massive gymnastics floor mat like some of those pictures going around where.
Yeah, it's awesome. The other change that was interesting to me was they're going to go to the home run derby if the All-Star game is tied.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so if the game's tied after 9, it's going to turn into a home run derby.
I love that too. There's a couple of reasons why I love that, but first and foremost, like that's the kind of shit rule you come up with, like when you're playing wiffle ball with your buddies in the backyard, and you're like, "Hey, tied after the next inning, we're just doing home run derby," and like now, like we're doing it in the All-Star game. Like that's actually hilarious.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, no, Ken has a good point. Like, what's going to be the penalty if they do shift? I don't know. I don't think that's been touched on. And not only is there, not only like, how are they going to enforce it? Like, like what's the, like, how do you enforce something like that? Like, oh, well, what's the difference between shading players and shifting players? Or, well, I lined up on this side of the bag when he started his wind up, and now I wound up on the other side of the bag. Like, it's in theory, it's fine. Yeah, sure, they're saying they're going to ban the shift, but like, that's probably why they have to wait till 2023, because they really got to figure out how to do it and really not screw with the game.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't put everybody in a chalk outline and be like, hey, you can only cover this part of the field. You can't move out of it.
Which is like where we're getting to now, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a good question. I'm curious about that too. Like, or is it going to be one of those things like you see the NFL do it every now and again, where like they put like a new rule in, and then they like enforce it for like the first half of the year, and then they just like really like slow, like ease off calling it, and then the next thing you know, it's not even a thing anymore. Like I wonder if it's going to be kind of one of those things because it is such a hot button issue. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I have no clue. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand that at all. I mean, other than putting everybody in a box, like I don't know how you enforce it.
And again, how do we define a shift? Is a shift simply more players on one side on the infield than another? So 3 on one side, 1 on the other, or baseball is notorious for shifting players around depending on who's at bat. I mean, we see outfielders shading guys opposite field. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't see people complaining about that.
Right.
It's the same theory.
Yeah, so it's what is a shift, but also like when does it happen? What if the shortstop stands behind second base and as soon as the pitch is thrown, he shuffles to his left and now is at second base? Like,
but yeah, right.
In typical MLB fashion, like they've agreed to a bunch of things. They've got to iron a lot of it out. But they've at least agreed to some basic terms and ratified it. Now some of the details will emerge. It happens
all the time throughout baseball. Like, certain hitters with 2 strikes, you're going to line up differently against them in the infield with 2 strikes than you are with, up to 2 strikes. Like, you're not going to do that anymore. Now you have to tell them wherever you start the at-bat, you have to stay. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, Ken makes another silly point, but it's true. Like, is the infield in with a runner on third a shift? Like, I mean,
I mean, by definition, right? By definition, he shifted his position.
Yeah, I just don't think it should matter. You have 9 guys that play defense. You have 9 guys that play defense. Like, no matter where you put them, if you want to put your catcher out in center field, put your goddamn catcher out in center field. Like,
I mean, imagine if football was like, you know what? Patrick Mahomes was struggling against cover 2, so just no more cover 2s. Like, that's essentially what baseball's doing. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're going to eliminate man coverage because it's been too hard.
That's ridiculous. Well, you played a lot of cover 2, and Patrick Mahomes really didn't have great success, so no more cover 2. Like, that's what baseball just did with the shift. That's insane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The stats say you're going to hit the ball here 80% of the time, but we're not going to let the teams put players in those positions for you. So
it's insane.
I'll tell you what, if baseball averages around the league don't go up without the shift, then those guys that were getting shifted on still just suck.
But you've looked up the stats, Harrison.
It was like 30 points, right? It wasn't even,
I don't even think it was that much. It was the difference on batting average between balls in play, right? We did it with the shift and without the shift. Yeah. It was a minuscule difference.
Yeah, over the last like 5 years, it's dropped like a total of 6 or 7 points. Like it really hasn't changed anything.
Right. Yeah. So like,
crazy.
The struggle with baseball players nowadays is still going to be putting the ball in play.
Right.
It's not the shift. It's guys getting up there and just swinging out of their ass the entire bat. That's what needs to change.
Yeah. When a guy like Joey Gallo whiffs 200 times a year, 40% of your at bats are already over. There was never even an attempt to get on base during those at bats. So only so much the rules can do to help you.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
Absolutely. And he would talk about the worst spokesperson to be against the shift was a guy that led the league in strikeouts for the last.
I will say this. I'm not going to defend Joey Gallo, but I'll stand up for him on we as the fans made him the spokesperson. He put out a single tweet. All he did was put out one tweet being like, oh yeah, it's not like he was like holding a press conference. It's like he put out
and he got destroyed.
And then everyone was just bashing him for it. Like we kind of made him the spokesperson.
Come on now.
I mean, I did kind of feel bad about that because this poor guy's probably sitting at home being like, Jesus Christ, I tweeted one thing. Go away.
Oh, I can't. I'm too tired for this.
The tweet heard around Major League Baseball.
Like, dude, but I mean, like, anyways, whatever. So yeah, we're back. Can't wait for the season to get started. I mean, now we just got to know where all these big free agents are going to land. We'll talk about it later, but holy cow, my phone's been blowing up all week, so we'll get there.
And there's two other minor things, and I'll put a link in the chat. People can pull it up later if they want. There's a bunch of under the radar things, but there's actually two things worth pointing out. One is they're changing the schedule. There's actually going to be less games in your own division, more games against the rest of the league, and more interleague. And it's going to be mixed into interleague's going to be more mixed in, as well as they've gotten rid of the game 163 tiebreaker. There will no longer be a game 163 tiebreaker. It'll all be formulaic, how they break ties in the future.
Well, that's because 22 teams make the playoffs, so that's.
Well, yeah, I mean it's hard to break a tie when everybody's tied.
Right. But yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's and I get like to try to grow the game, so I get you want to see, if you're on the East Coast more, in the American League you want to see Mookie Betts more often. You want to see, Mike Trout if you're, so I get that, but like if I'm a player, like I'm not so sure. Like so, I'm playing less games. If I'm a Red Sox player, I'm playing less games against the Yankees. I'm playing less games against Minnesota in order to play more games against like Milwaukee and like I don't know. I mean, I get it. Like you're trying to get everybody around, but like those games against those common opponents, like those matter for playoffs. Like what do I give a shit how good I am against the Brewers?
Right.
Like I'd rather have more games against Cleveland and Minnesota and Toronto.
And then what's interesting too is they've carved off a segment of the schedule for rivalry games, like the games people really want to see. So they're going to have a chance to like amp up more Sox Yankees games,
which is great. I like that.
Exactly, and they can even use them in interleague play. So you could see some Mets Yankees series, you can see some Dodgers Angels series. Do your inter area rivalries and.
Well, you didn't have to monkey with the schedule that much to do that.
No, in many cases
like
you didn't.
Like in order to ramp up more Red Sox Yankees, you didn't have to take Red Sox Yankees away and give me Red Sox San Diego.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of these things that they should have been doing, like they didn't need to monkey with the schedule. But I mean, I don't totally hate it. I'm not trying to sit here and bash it. I found that was like an interesting, like what a weird.
Because in the past, it's been like the NFL, right, where they only played like the NL East or like the NL West,
like
right? When they did the interleague, it wasn't like random.
No, it was like an equation that would go on, and it would.
I don't want to watch the Red Sox play the Orioles 19 times a year. I just don't. Like, at least give me some variety.
But I get that part of the argument, but that comes along with playing the Yankees 19 times a year. Like you like those ones, right? Like that's
I do,
what you take. Like if you want the Yankees 19 times, you got to play the Orioles 19 times. That's just how. Like you can't just start taking away bad division rivals, and putting in like better teams from the National League.
I mean, you could just have the Diamondbacks, Pirates, and Orioles play each other all year.
But the hard part was,
and then when one of them makes the playoffs, people are going to be like, "Well, that's ridiculous. All they played against was the Pirates and the Diamondbacks. Of course, they're going to make the playoffs."
When you look at the old schedule, I mean, the Red Sox used to play nearly half of their games in their own division. You saw the same teams on frickin' repeat. Now they're going to add some variety to the schedule. You're going to see some other teams, National League teams you haven't seen, other divisional teams you'll see more often. Sure. I mean, I think what it does is it gives the fans some more variety, so it's not the same series on repeat. But there's pros and cons to that.
But I mean, just think about when we were growing up. Like, we never saw Tony Gwynn. We never saw him because he was on the West Coast.
But that's not because the Red Sox didn't play San Diego 30 times a year. It's because technology. We didn't have MLB Network. We didn't have social media. We didn't have MLB TV. Like, baseball fans have all that now. So, like, I live in Boston, right outside of Boston. If I want to watch the Cardinals play 30 times, I have no problem watching the Cardinals play 30 times. I don't need them to come to Boston and play the Red Sox for that to happen.
Right.
So,
I
like,
got you.
The game is, like, you have tools in order for the game to continue to grow and become more popular. You don't have to start monkeying with the schedule.
Right.
I mean, it's what it is.
I hear you.
And what's it going to end up being? Like, instead of 19 times against the Yankees, what is it, 15 or something like that? So, I mean, it's not a crazy decline. I get that, but it's just the idea. I wasn't, totally pumped about that. But
yeah, absolutely. But Stacy said she loves. Oh yeah, Stacy also said she loves Game 163. Sad to see it go. I mean, the 1-game wild card was kind of cool, but at the same time, like, I mean, yeah.
I felt fine about that one way or the other. Like, if they kept it, I would have like, okay, cool. They got rid of it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I didn't feel strongly one way or the other.
Yeah. Part of the reason All-Star Game decline, right, is what we were just talking about. Everybody can see everybody now. National TV and interleague play. I mean, I don't disagree with that point at all. I mean, that's kind of what we were just going with.
I mean, it's good for baseball to be able to get more exposure for these players, but it does take away from things like the All-Star Game because you have seen these guys before. It doesn't make it any less fun necessarily, but it's the novelty of it isn't the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And Scott just wanted to say hi.
Hi, Scott.
What's up, Scott?
But yeah. So, all right. So we got baseball back. We are gonna still touch on a little bit of
interesting counter argument.
Yeah.
Although for the Red Sox record, I'd also like to see the Orioles 20 times a year. I hate watching them, but I'd love to see them be able to go 18-2 against the garbage team and pick up some wins.
Yep. Yeah, because we know the other 3 teams in that division are going to be tough.
Yeah. Right. There's no layups.
So we are still going to touch on a little bit of college. We're going to run down that real quick. A little college top 10. Texas did fall out of the top spot. Ole Miss moved up. Brian Sawyer actually sent me or tagged me in a video of the kid that stole 3 bases in one play. Did you guys see that?
The pickoff attempt?
Yeah, the pickoff attempt, steals second, goes to third, and then goes home. Like, oh my God, man. Like, what was the defense sleeping? Completely sleeping.
If I'm the coach of that team, I'm leaving on the bus by myself, leaving them all behind.
Yeah.
That was the worst coverage I've ever seen in my whole life. Guys had no idea where to be.
Well, right.
Oh,
and like everyone was just.
It happens. I mean, it happens.
Right.
It was, it was one guy, 2 guys that were caught sleeping. Other guys are out of position, and then all it is you just exacerbate a bad play by making another bad play, and it just compounds the mistake. Like we saw it with Pittsburgh. What was it, 2 years ago? Remember on that strike 3, and the guy. No, ground ball.
It was Javi Baez.
Javi Baez play.
Ground ball, and it was a throw down the first baseline, right? And Javi starts going back towards home plate. And then the first baseman starts chasing him, and then they start throwing the ball all over the diamond. When all the first baseman had to do was turn around and touch the bag. Like, what are you doing? Like, where's your awareness? And these are pro ball players. So it happens. It happens.
I mean, but the college one, the Ole Miss one, like everyone was cycling back up to second base to get into that rundown. They were expecting that to be a pickle. So then now third base is left uncovered. The catcher was late getting there. And then everybody in this rundown didn't go cover home. So it was, like you said, just compounded. It was a brain
fart. It was one person probably makes the bad decision, and then everyone else is kind of like, you don't practice something like that. So everyone just kind of just instinct takes over, and it was just,
it was awesome.
Bad play. But it was funny to watch, though.
In that play, like Nick was saying, though, everybody rotates around. But what happens is the first baseman then swings. The rotation continues. The first baseman then swings to home plate.
Right.
So the problem is the shortstop got out of position. So the third baseman got out of position. So the catcher had to run over. So the first baseman had to. It was a whole series of dominoes there where one guy out of position causes everybody to be out of position because they're all cycling around trying to fill it.
And that's why communication's key. And they probably weren't communicating. Like, you got to communicate.
No, I mean, where was the pitcher and the first baseman on that play? There should have been two guys available to cover.
Yeah. So Ole Miss takes the top spot, and they deserve to after that play we just discussed. Then Texas slides down to number 2. We got Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Oregon State in the top 5 right now.
Yeah. And Oregon State moved up 2 spots to break into the top 5. They had a good week.
Yep.
They're a good club.
They are. They're very and you got Vanderbilt sitting in front of them at 4, and they are loaded.
Yeah. Vanderbilt's always loaded. Year in, year out.
Goodness. Loaded.
It's insane. We got Notre Dame at 6, Tennessee at 7. They're up a couple spots, right? Weren't they 10, I think, last week?
Yeah, they were 10 last week. Yep.
Yeah,
Notre Dame's at 6 up from 9, and Tennessee's at 7 up from 10. So they both slid up together.
And then Florida State and Florida, 8 and 9.
Yep.
And then Georgia Tech rounds out the top 10. And my NC State Wolfpack, they plummet out of the top 25, and they plummet hard.
We talked about them, and we ruined them.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah. I should be able to get to any game I want to now. So,
yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, right? More baseball for me.
And in the Division III news, the University of Southern Maine continues to remain number 2 in New England with a record of 29-8.
Who's won?
Cool.
In New England?
Yeah.
Probably Wheaton.
Eastern Connecticut. Yeah, Eastern Connecticut State.
East Connecticut.
Wheaton is 3rd, Babson's 4th, Rhode Island's 5th.
Yeah.
Very good. Sweet.
Yeah. I mean, those are the same 5 schools that are always at the top. Always. It's always Eastern Connecticut, Wheaton.
Yeah.
You are right.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Those are D3 programs that feel a lot like D1 programs the way they're run.
Absolutely. So that's our quick 5th inning showdown. The quick college update.
And you guys check out anytime you guys can. I've been pumping them for 2 weeks. University of Texas. I know they fell out of number 1, but this kid Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic is his nickname. This guy hits 500 boom ups. It's his nickname. He is, and this guy he had a game. It was either it must have been Saturday or Friday. He had 2 home runs and 2 at bats.
He's the one that flipped the bat at the pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, bat flip at the pitcher, dude.
I mean, but it was worth it. That ball was hit 700 feet.
Yeah.
So it's like I would have done that too. The absolute moon bomb.
Absolutely.
So they're fun to watch just for him alone.
Right. The Hispanic Titanic is amazing.
What a great
That's such a great name. That's a classic.
Best nickname in baseball.
Love it.
For sure.
Oh my God. All right. So here we go. We're going to move on to the 7th inning stretch where we have the bracket update, so we can just sit here and get roasted by Ken the whole time.
It's all about Ken. It's all about war. Follow the war.
All right.
But it's not all about war.
No, I know. I just love saying.
I know.
So here we go. We are now in the this is 4 to get into the Elite 8. Our first matchup is Babe Ruth against Ken Griffey Jr. And
this one hurt a little bit.
This one did, but we went with the kid here. We took Babe Ruth out, and we went Ken Griffey Jr. here. These are the matchups that took us probably the longest. No doubt. These ones were crunchers.
This one had some yelling in it.
Yeah, I mean,
this one in particular had some yelling in it.
And we used war a little bit, but we didn't use war as exclusively. It's not the stat we used. We used the overall picture of it. And we went with Griffey because of the impact he had on our probably generation bias, no doubt. No, we've all seen him play.
No question.
But
generation bias.
The impact he had at that time was just it wasn't seen, He changed the way the game was played at that point.
I mean, we talk about, the Mark McGuire, the Sammy Sosa, the Barry Bonds, right? After the 94 was a player strike in 94, and then we missed the World Series, and then, baseball popularity was plummeting from everything we hear. I mean, I was 5 years old, so I don't, fully remember it. But that's kind of right. Griffey, McGuire, Sosa, Barry Bonds. I mean, those guys were the faces of baseball. The faces of baseball. Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr. was the guy that everyone wanted to be in the backyard. When you showed up to batting practice before your Little League game, you put your hat on backwards when you hit batting practice. That's what Ken Griffey Jr. did that for an entire generation of people. Plus, he was a really damn good baseball player. So,
yeah,
I had Babe Ruth in my bracket, but I lost on that one, and I understand it. I get that one. I get that one.
Well, and the hard part too is that from a WAR perspective, I mean, Babe Ruth beats Ken Griffey by like 100 points of WAR. Like it's not even close. But Babe also pitched for 7 seasons. Really, only 2 of them were of note. 3 of them were of note. I mean, he was an okay pitcher. But I look at it more as the impact Griffey had on the game. Babe Ruth hit bombs and then drank himself stupid. Ken Griffey Jr. played Gold Glove defense, changed the way teams approached bats, changed the ways pitchers could pitch, covered so much ground, hit home runs, hit for average, ran. I mean, he did everything. Babe Ruth kind of did one thing. And I just think when you look at what they brought to the table, WAR won't support it. But when you look what they brought to the table, I think Griffey was the more complete player that had a bigger impact on the games he played in.
I mean, I probably, but I think I think the idea that like Griffey did change a generation and he influenced an entire generation and all that. But to say that Babe Ruth didn't have the similar type of impact, like people were not stepping up to the plate, like calling shots and like hitting 60 home runs in a season. That wasn't a thing that was happening at that time. So like, did he like revolutionize the game the way that maybe, I don't know, but I do think Babe Ruth had probably a bigger impact than we collectively probably give him credit for, which is probably where the generation bias comes in, because we saw and felt the impact of Griffey. Like we lived it. We were the impact. So, I mean, obviously I think that bias does come through, but.
Yeah. Well, and Babe Ruth was the first true baseball superstar. He was the face of baseball for a long time. Even
though he likely killed his first wife. Did you guys hear that? On the
No.
Yo,
no,
what?
I didn't.
You haven't? I thought that was like fairly like well known.
Nope.
Yeah, you. Let me. You guys keep going. Let me find this.
Goodness gracious!
I didn't even drop a bomb on you guys like that. Like I thought that was a thing that you guys knew.
We are now rounding
third murder mystery.
Don't get me started. I will sit here 3 hours a night with you guys if you want to do that.
Goodness gracious!
Look at that.
All right,
Ken Griffey likes our pick.
On to the next one. We got a Teddy ball game against Mr. Hit Machine, Tony Gwynn. I mean, this again, another one, but I mean, I think this is the master and the student. Ted Williams takes this, where Tony Gwynn is the ultimate student to the master, Ted Williams. I mean, Tony Gwynn took everything that Ted Williams, we've talked about the science behind hitting and all of that. And Tony Gwynn, like, really fine-tuned it and really took it to heart and made him hit. But Ted Williams' numbers are just absolutely incredibly stupid, like across the board, everything: home runs, RBIs, doubles, triples, average. I mean, everybody knows Ted Williams' stats. Nothing to take away from Tony Gwynn, but I think this one was a fairly easy one for us. Ted Williams moves on.
Love Tony Gwynn. He was an absolute freak, but you're 100% right with it being kind of student and teacher, because he followed the groundwork Ted Williams laid to a T.
Yeah. I mean, I think without Ted Williams, Tony Gwynn is not the Tony Gwynn that we know.
Yeah, not the same.
Right, like without Ted Williams.
Yep, I agree. So that puts Griffey against Ted Williams next week.
All right, let me interject here on the Babe Ruth thing, because I found it.
Here we go.
So Babe Ruth's first wife was killed in a house fire in 1929 in January, when Babe was not supposedly, he was playing for the Yankees, but it was January, so his baseball season wasn't there. She lived in Watertown, Mass, with like this new, like, they weren't married, but like this new dentist. The dentist was out. She was home alone. Someone saw smoke. The house was set on fire, and it was suspicious circumstances. And now I'm reading all these things. People are just like, oh, Babe definitely did it. So I think I may have jumped the gun by saying Babe Ruth did it. I think I may have read these conspiracy theories. So I'm going to put my hand up. That one was on me. But yeah, that's what happened.
That's awesome.
On me. I apologize.
All right. Well,
I definitely jumped the gun.
Awesome.
It's all good.
Love it. All right. So we got our next matchup, bottom left corner here. We got Willie Mays against Pete Rose. I'm sorry, Petey, but Willie Mays is the first 5, 6, 7, 8 tool player to ever exist, to ever do it. I think he's the best all-around baseball player to ever play the game. He is my absolute favorite. But yeah, Willie Mays beats Pete Rose. And I mean, Pete Rose was unreal, like running over catchers in all-star games and taking them out for their career, which we'll get to later. But yeah, I mean, sorry, it's Willie Mays.
And again, I mean, and I know we've said it 100 times throughout the first few rounds, right? Like, if he's going up against anyone else, Pete Rose probably advances. But I mean, Willie Mays is Willie Mays. I mean, again, and Willie Mays didn't do what Willie Mays did for 8 years. Willie Mays did it for like 1,000 years, like at the top of his, like for so long, which is just, I don't even know what's most remarkable about Willie Mays. I don't know. Is it the longevity? Is it the sheer stats? Is it
25 all-star
athleticism? Like, what is? I don't even know what the most impressive thing about it is.
Yeah.
But it's just, I would have I don't know if I could have made an argument for Pete Rose other than like he's the hit king, and like that's great and that's awesome and he belongs in the Hall of Fame and yada yada. But he's not better than Willie Mays.
No. There's only a couple of players that stand a shot to take Willie Mays down, and Pete Rose ain't one of them.
Not one.
No. All right, so then we move down to the Iron Horse against Stan the Man Musial, and we went with.
Who did we go with?
Stan Musial.
I thought Nick. I thought you just cut up for a second. I was like, what a time for Nick.
I was pausing because this was a matchup Ken sent me earlier, and he goes Lou Gehrig against Musial. Gehrig better come out on top. I'm like, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, we went with Musial here.
But this is a tough one. This is hard for us because like both of those guys, like we obviously weren't able to watch these guys play. So it's like you just look at numbers. Like all we can do is just look at numbers. And like a guy like Stan Musial, a guy like Lou Gehrig, a guy like Joe DiMaggio, a guy like Ted Wood, like those guys, like they're more than just numbers. Like people that watch them play. Like I remember my grandpa, when both my grandparents were still with us, like they would talk about watching these guys play like they were gods, right? Like it's not, they weren't like, we just read numbers. Like we can see, some highlights or whatever, but they're not good. They're not like, highlights like you would see today. So it's just numbers. So I don't know.
I mean, you look at Stan Musial's career. I mean, he lost his age 24 season to military service. The guy still had 3,600 hits, 475 home runs, and a 331 career batting average.
331 career batting average.
Right.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And Gehrig, when you look at the numbers, it's Stan Musial. There's not. I think might only be one or two categories that Lou Gehrig has Stan Musial. But also Stan Musial beats him in the WAR also. But when you look at Stan Musial's numbers and look at how high the batting averages were, the power mixed with that, like this guy was an absolutely unstoppable force at the plate. Just unstoppable force at the plate. 24-time All-Star. He won 7 batting titles, 3 MVPs. I mean, 2-time Player of the Year. It's just obscene.
7 batting titles is ridiculous.
Yeah,
7 batting titles for a guy with almost 500 home runs.
I think playoff career stats, though, like Brian just put in the chat, like that's a tough thing to use because, like, I mean, we're talking about a guy like in Lou Gehrig that, like, I don't think he ever didn't make the playoffs with that Yankees team.
Right.
Like, so I mean, like Stan Musial, like, there's only so much you can do in baseball. I mean, it's an individual sport, but like it's team driven when it comes to like playoffs, like getting into the playoffs. Right. I mean, that's another reason why I think Curt Schilling even was sniffing the Hall of Fame was because he was on good teams that made playoff games.
Right.
Well, if you're going to make that argument, then a guy like Ken Griffey Jr. shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. It's not his fault they didn't go to the playoffs. Like, it's unfortunate that Stan Musial played on a lot of teams that weren't that good, but his stats are superior to Lou Gehrig's in nearly every category. So it's hard to make that compare.
Yeah. I mean
12, he had almost 13,000 plate appearances, Stan Musial. 13,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he hit still for his career was a 331 career hitter.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it from the perspective of if you had to start a team and your first pick in the draft to be Musial or Gehrig, who are you taking? taking Musial for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Brian,
I guess I see what Brian's saying when he says that Gehrig's stats are better because he played way less games and way less plate appearances. So to have those numbers, and I'm not so sure I disagree with that side of it. But like now we're penalizing a guy like Stan Musial because he played as long as he did.
Right.
Like so now it becomes a detriment. Like I don't know if I follow that side of it. I'm not trying to take anything away from Lou Gehrig. Like what he did in the number of games and plate appearances is insane.
Absolutely.
But like I don't think it's punishable for Musial to have 13,000 plate appearances.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said, like I see that side of the argument, but I hate it at the same time because it's like, like it's really, you're damaging or whatever. You're taking away his longevity. You're like, oh, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, right. Stan Musial doesn't have that. Stan Musial did not die of his own disease. That's true. That is right. He does have us there.
Oh my God.
That is very, very true.
Stan Musial did not die of his own disease. That is true.
I mean,
all right. I'll change
facts.
I'll change the pick.
Facts are facts.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Okay, moving on from that. Moving on.
Yikes.
Whew. I can't with those two. All right, here we go.
When you think about it though, when you think of Stan Musial's stats, if he had that one season he lost to military service, his stats would be even that more ridiculous.
I guess, but I mean that's a slippery slope. You can't start doing that either.
No, but it's just it's wild to think that a guy put up those numbers and missed a absolute prime season.
Sure.
Jesus.
All right. So we'll have Willie Mays against Stan Musial next week. And then now in the upper right corner, we got Hank Aaron against Jimmy Fox. And that one
easy one.
Yeah, that's totally easy one. That's Hammer and Hank. No brainer. So yep, Hank there. And then we got Roger Clemens versus Peter Martinez.
Who was against Pedro? I was like, who was Peter?
Yeah, Spanish Peter. I mean, and we went with the Red Rocket there, right? We did.
Yeah, we did.
So we went with Roger Clemens over Pedro there. Again, I think this one was more like longevity with Clemens, right? His just overall dominance, where Pedro had, I mean, he had those dominant seasons, but it wasn't as long as Clemens.
And Clemens has how many Cy Youngs?
Yeah,
a few.
Like 46.
And he should have two more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could absolutely argue that.
Yeah. So
I mean, the thing with Clemens is not only was it 7 Cy Youngs, it was 7 ERA titles, like a 2-time Triple Crown winner. I mean, it's love Pedro. Pedro was so good for a period of time. Pedro at his peak. Pedro at his peak was probably better than Clemens at his peak in terms of dominance, but Clemens was that good for so long.
I don't know.
So long.
Yeah. I mean, Pedro had the 99 and 2000 seasons where he was clearly the best pitcher, but
yeah, true. But I guess, but I bet you Pedro at his peak and Clemens at his peak would be a lot closer than I think you're giving credit for.
Oh no, I think it's close.
Sure. Yeah,
I think Pedro's peak dominance is better than Clemens. It's not like far and away. But Clemens was winning 20. He had 20 game seasons. You know, he had four of them. You know, 2 in his early 20s, 2 in his mid 30s, and he was consistently, 18. I mean, just 17, 18. He was consistently in the high teens, even on teams that weren't great.
Let's just say that he's struck out 20 batters in a game twice.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I know.
Goodness gracious. It's Clemens. So,
and also,
I mean, like,
one of the few pitchers that won an MVP.
But like the 2005 season, where like I know we only won. He was in Houston. This is his last All-Star season, right? Steroids, like at that point of his career, I don't think there's really any question about that. 13-8. So like, but he had a 1.87 ERA, and he came in third. Like, not only did he not win, he didn't even come second in Cy Young. Like, how's
1.87.
That? He had a 1.87 in 2005.
I know,
dude.
He struck out 185 Ks in 211 innings at age 42.
You had a sub-2 ERA, and you weren't even in the top 2.
I know. It's unreal.
Yeah. So, anyways.
Goodness gracious. But yeah, so Roger Clemens. So we'll have Hank Aaron versus Roger Clemens next week. So we will move down to the bottom bracket here, and we got
Ken wants to put brackets or put asterisks on those 20 strikeout games.
I mean, sure. Why not?
I mean, they were terrible teams, and I'll be.
They totally were.
I've even said to my dad was obviously, I'm sure you guys can imagine, big Clemens guy. So I heard it my whole life growing up. But like, we'd be like in the kitchen, like having dinner or whatever, and that like Nesson would be showing like they show the Mariners one much more often than they show the Detroit one for whatever reason. But they'll be like replaying the Mariners game. And it's like, listen, 20 strikeouts is 20 strikeouts. Yep. That's impressive as it is. But even I'm like, Dad, like half these guys don't even know how to swing a baseball bat. Like, what are they even doing up there? Like the stances, they look completely off balance. I'm like, do they even know like how to like foul something off? Like, what's going on? Like there are at bats where it's just like, and maybe that's just how good Clemens was, but like I feel like some of it is just like the ineptitude of the Seattle Mariners. That was embarrassing at times.
They were bad. That team was horrendous, absolutely
terrible.
Yeah,
but still, 20 Ks is 20 Ks. I mean, there has been plenty of terrible baseball teams since then, and not a lot of 20K games. So it's still impressive to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have Hammer and Hank versus Roger Clemens next week, and then move down to the bottom right bracket, and we got Ty Cobb against Joe Morgan, and we went with Ty Cobb here. I mean, his numbers for that time period were silly, and I mean, he was the all-time career hit leader before Pete Rose came along. His career batting average is insane too.
366.
You have it
366,
right?
Right? That's the highest all time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the highest all time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's insane. So yeah, Ty Cobb goes there.
The guy had 6 seasons of 200 or more hits. I mean, just and granted, yes, it was the early 1900s, and they played in cow pastures and all that stuff, but still, to put the bat on the ball that consistently and get on base is unreal.
How many games did they play a year? They didn't play 162, did they? There's no way.
No, they played 156. That was the most, I believe.
Yeah. I think that's where like it's for players like Ty Cobb and like the generation like that, like where like I look at like a stat like WAR and I give it, not that I give it more weight, but I give it like because that's all we have to go on. Like we don't.
That's it. Yeah.
Like so yeah, like it's impressive simply because like the WAR number tells you that the average ball player of that period, that time period was a 305 hitter or whatever, and Ty Cobb hit 366. Like that's what makes it that impressive. It's not that they played in cow pastures, but it's just that the average player was a XYZ hitter and he's an ABC hitter. That's kind of where I'll look at a stat like that and just kind of be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to compare a guy that was hitting in 1905 to a guy hitting in 1995. Like it's just games. I mean, everything's so different. But WAR is the only stat you really do have that's a comparison. Brian's not ready to move off the Gehrig versus Stan argument.
That's okay. Listen, this is great. I think this is why we want to do something like this, to get these passionate debates. I feel like Brian's sitting there being like, these three people think Lou Gehrig stinks. I'm like, I just don't want that to be what.
No, good God, no.
Because that's not how I'm.
The worst. Wow. I mean, goodness. You put Lou Gehrig on any other team in the major leagues, and he's not even Lou Gehrig. He's not even a name.
There's not even a disease named after him.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
You guys are crazy.
I'm clearly kidding.
I know you are. I hope you're kidding.
Stacey, I can't.
She did.
What is going
you know what's
on
funny
tonight?
is as I was having that verbal diarrhea about Seattle, I wasn't even thinking that. And then of course we did. Yeah, she's right. Of course we did.
Oh God. All right, let's finish this up.
Move right along.
We got Barry Bonds against Randy Johnson, and this was interesting because these were stats that we could look up head to head, and we were like, man, I feel like Randy Johnson might have an edge, or it might have some stats against Barry Bonds, and he does. And Barry Bonds wrecked him.
And it wasn't even to say like, I don't even think if Randy Johnson had the stats, like the head-to-head stats, I still wouldn't have picked him over Barry Bonds. But it would have been like a fun thing. But then you look up the stats, and he hit like 480 against Randy Johnson with one strikeout. He struck out once against Randy Johnson. That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
I mean, we're talking about a guy that had how many seasons of 300 plus Ks, and Barry Bonds struck out once. And they played in the same division for a handful of years.
against
And that is a
arguably the
hideous
best
lefty-on-lefty
left-handed-
matchup.
Right.
Like
Against the-
hideous.
He drew 6 walks, and he struck out once, and he hit like 480. Took him deep 3 times.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, it was just looking those numbers up. My jaw hit the floor. I'm like,
yeah, I didn't think it was gonna. Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna be like that. And we were just like, what? Just
unbelievable.
Yeah, that was insane. So yeah, so Brian probably thinks we're gonna go with Randy Johnson in that matchup. So
no.
Yeah, because Barry Bonds
Johnson
isn't any good.
Yeah.
No Randy Johnson. I love Randy Johnson, but there was.
Oh, I know.
We should have to forfeit this podcast if we picked Randy Johnson over Barry Bonds.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, agreed.
Forfeit.
But yeah. So Barry Bonds wins that matchup.
Now, if you adjust for steroids, is he still better than Randy Johnson?
Yes,
Oh, please, yes.
Hands down.
But he's not in the Hall of Fame. Let's just, Randy Johnson's got that on Barry Bonds.
Yeah, another stupid topic, but yeah, I mean, it's insane. I just could those numbers when we were talking about them.
I'm with you, Brian. Amen. I absolutely am not a Barry Bonds fan. Never have been, but have to pick him.
But at a certain point, you just have to, like, if you're going to pick someone like Randy Johnson over Barry Bonds, then you just have to come out and just be like, I'm doing it out of bias. Like, you just have to admit that, and then we can move on. Because, like, there's no
Hall of Fame
legitimate
voter.
baseball argument.
Yeah. Right. I'm a Hall of Fame voter. I'm doing it strictly on emotion.
Correct.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, just to go back to you and the points about, like, when we looked at those head-to-head stats, we didn't think they were going to be that good.
No.
It was nuts.
No,
I couldn't believe it.
Because I remember we were so giddy looking them up. We were like, oh my God, they were in the same division for so long. They must have a good sample size. And then the numbers were just jaw-dropping. 6 walks, 1 K, 3 homers. What?
Yeah.
Off of a guy that was designed to be nasty against lefties.
Yeah.
And had 300 and something strikeouts a year against, that division. Like,
I mean, there were lefties who took the day off when Randy Johnson pitched, but not Barry Bonds.
Yeah. Barry Bonds didn't not only take the day off, he went out and had himself a great day.
Yeah. Don't pick him to win it all. I'll find you where I'll live. All right. Well, we'll see. Anyway.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. So we have our Elite 8. We have Griffey against Williams. We have Mays against Musial. We have Hank Aaron against Hank Aaron against Roger Clemens. And then Ty Cobb against Barry Bonds. We're down to our final 8. So we have a scoring update. We have Ken with 48 points, Josh with 53, Scott with 54, Morgan with 66, and Stacy has 75. She had a really good week this week. So
the gap is widening.
The gap's widening, but we will see what happens. I know what happens, but we will just throw it out there later on. Yeah. So that was our bracket update for this week. So we'll do Elite 8 next week to get to the Final 4. Just a quick fantasy league. We are putting that together. Some of you guys got the message and the emails tonight. We are going to do the draft next Thursday, the 24th at 7 p.m. It's going to be a head-to-head matchup each week. So, like, if me and Harrison match up, we go against each other. The person with the most points that week gets the win for that week. So that's the head-to-head we are going to do there. And then I can also release other details to you guys in the message or on our podcast page later on. So that's our quick fantasy league minute there. So we're going to move on to rounding third, which our question this week was, what was the best All-Star game ever? And we had a lot of responses for this one. Yeah. This one was a really cool question. And it was pretty unanimous across the board. I mean, we all have New England roots. Everybody absolutely loved that Fenway Park All-Star game. I mean,
my favorite of all time for sure.
Yeah, I mean the whole festivities, right? The all-century team, the home run derby
Ted Williams.
The whole Ted Williams thing. That's the all-century team, like, and then the home run derby with, like, oh, sorry, Ken, it's on ESPN. We're gonna do the fantasy league through. Sorry.
Oh yeah, he's asking which website. Yep.
Yep. ESPN. So yeah, the
Homers,
Fenway
it
Park
says.
one for everything we just said. What did you say? Homers.
Ken says homers.
I know. I'm gonna get to his in a minute because his is really cool
I mean,
too. I love his pick.
MLB.com ranked it. MLB.com ranked it as the best All-Star game.
Well, I mean, Fenway is the most one of the most historic fields with the most historic moment with the all-century team. With it is what it is.
You were coming off the 98 home run race. You had McGuire hitting moonshots off the light tower. You had Pedro Martinez mowing down the heart of the National League order. You had Ted Williams holding court with every hitter that could even get close to him. I've never seen an All-Star game that had so much kind of fanfare and kind of showed so much love to the game of baseball. Yeah. It wasn't just the event, but it was just the way they encompassed all of it. It was amazing.
Brian Sawyer was there. He was at the All-Star game in the home run derby. Really? Yeah, he posted the picture on he has the vouchers and the tickets and stuff there. That's sick. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, no kidding.
But yeah, so I mean, everybody from the SOS podcast said that one. Doug said that was his favorite as well. So Ken did mention the 1971 at Tiger Stadium where Reggie Jackson hit the transformer on the roof.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Good pick. I mean, and then not only that, Hank Aaron, Johnny Bench, Roberto Clemente, Frank Robinson, and Harmon Killebrew all homered in that game.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean,
which one was that? 1971?
1971. Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Nate Dunkley said the one where Torrey Hunter robbed Barry Bonds in Milwaukee.
That was good.
And then that was a good one.
And then I just love that one because it was tied in the 10th inning and everyone was out of pitchers and Bud Selig was just like,
"Yep, what do we do? No idea what to do." Yep.
Yeah. Dave Ingram, another one of my friends, said the All-Star game where Bo Jackson hit the monster leadoff home run. It was tanked. It wasn't just it was a bomb.
Yeah, that was in Kansas City, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
And he was playing for the Royals, I thought, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was touched.
That was touched.
My personal favorite, I wanted to go. I mean, I love the Fenway All-Star game. Don't get me wrong, but 2003, the final score was 7-6. Garrett Anderson went 3 for 4 with a double and a home run. He got the All-Star MVP and he won the home run derby the night before. He's the only player to ever do that.
Wow.
Hank Blaylock. You remember him from the Rangers?
Oh my God, the Texas Rangers! Hell yeah!
Hank Blaylock hit a 2-run go-ahead homer in the top of the ninth, which was a blown save by Eric Gagne. Eric Gagne was in the middle of his 84 consecutive streak, and they didn't lose it because it's an exhibition game, but he blew that save for the National League with that home run by Hank Blaylock. And then who closed out the game for the AL there?
Are you asking or trivia?
Yes,
question?
I'm asking. 2003.
Folk?
Yes, Keith Folk. Nice job.
Yep.
Yeah,
you know that 2003, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first one where home field advantage for the World Series was on the line, right?
It could have been. Yeah, it might have been. It sounds about right.
If not that year, then right around it.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
crazy.
One moment that I'll never forget. I don't know that it was necessarily the best game, but that 2001 All-Star game in Seattle, Stacy, where it was Cal Ripken Jr.'s final.
Oh yeah.
And that's when they A-Rod pushed him over to the shortstop position with all the, they took the moment to honor him. A-Rod pushed him over, made him play shortstop to start the game. That was a cool moment to see Cal Ripken's final pass.
And he homered in that game.
That's right, he did. You're right, he did.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, it's an all-star game, right? The catcher's probably like, "Hey, Cal, fastball down the middle, about
maybe
high."
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it was nice, but it gave Ripken the record for most starts at the position. It also gave, him a final ride.
Oh, absolutely, it was great.
It was a cool one.
Yeah. How about you, Sean? Do you have a favorite one?
I mean, the Fenway one was cool. I was doing research, and I thought, I think 1949, the All-Star Game was the only All-Star Game ever be held at Ebbets Field, but it happened to be 2 years after Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier, and there was like multiple African Americans the first time starting in the AllStar game. It was, in Brooklyn at Ebbets. Like, that's kind of cool. Obviously, I didn't see it, but, doing research, I'm like, that's a pretty cool one. I mean, the Fenway one will always be my favorite, not just AllStar game, but I think the whole circumstances surrounding
festivities
it, right? The
of
home run derby the night before. I was 9. Like, so I was still like a kid. I remember like the awe of having it like where I lived, essentially. Like, I lived just outside the city. Like, that was like the coolest thing in the world. And then it was a great game. I mean, Pedro getting out there and literally just mowing guys down. Yeah. And then the one guy that gets on base is a strike him out, throw him out by Pudge to end the inning. See ya.
Right.
Like, that's awesome. Yeah. Like, that couldn't have been any better. Like, that was a really cool one.
Yeah. I mean, just the legends that were on that field standing on the pitcher's mound before the game is just unreal. I mean,
iconic.
It's crazy.
And I'll never forget Ted Williams. That every hitter that could was getting as close to him as they could. He's asking Mark McGwire if he smells burning wood when he fouls the ball back. Like those guys that you saw every Major League Baseball turn into a little kid and run to try to talk to Ted Williams. Like awesome. That was the best, probably one of the best baseball moments I've ever witnessed. Yeah. Forget about All-Star game.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.
And Stacy likes 2001 because Seattle was actually good that year. That's fair.
We do enough dumping on Seattle, so I'm gonna, but I don't think the Seattle Mariners in 2001, 2000, 1999, like that 3 or 4 year span, like what was the year they won like 130 games?
Was it 116 that year?
Oh yeah, 116 games. What was the 2000?
2001. It was the 01 season.
It was the 2001 season. I don't think they've been to the postseason since. I think that's the last time they've been in the postseason.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. 21 years.
Their playoff drought can drink legally. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Their playoff drought should end then. That means they should be able to crack open a beer and drink.
So, anyways, I don't know why that popped in my head the other day when I was scrolling through, and I'm like, that is a long, long time.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
that's
like not even a World Series drought, a playoff drought.
Yeah.
And they've had some good. Yeah, and they've had some good teams in those years. They've always come up just short.
Teams.
I mean, like last year.
Right. Well, and that's what Ken just put in. It's exactly what I was saying. Like, they had Griffey, they had A-Rod, they had Randy, they had Edgar. They had Jay Buhner. I love Jay Buhner, right? I mean,
I always loved Jay Buhner. I watched him go to the bullpen at Fenway Park.
What's up?
Yeah.
Watching Jay Buhner go into the bullpens at Fenway Park a couple of times, catching balls in right field.
But it was just like, I was looking back, I'm like, they really did. Seattle did. You could bring your own pizza to Safeco in 08. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Right.
But
I love
that's
that.
honestly, like, I love Lou Piniella, but you have to look at a guy like that as a manager when you had that kind of talent for those years and didn't win anything. Like, how? How did you not win something in that window?
I know I said we weren't going to dump on Seattle, and then we spent like 2.5 minutes dumping on Seattle. So I guess we
did. You're right.
Could probably move on, but I just wanted to mention that. That's great.
Love it.
Moving on.
All right, so we have a white hot stove here. I mean, so much has happened this week since baseball came back. I'm gonna start out with these two big stories that just came out. Fernando Tatis Jr. is out for 3 months with a broken wrist, possibly linked to a motorcycle crash in the offseason. So don't draft him. But yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit before we came on the podcast that like it's kind of a red flag. I mean,
big time.
Oh, kind of. I'd say it's a huge red flag. And he's a young kid, and he's an energetic kid, and he's in the offseason. He wants to go have fun. That's not necessarily what would concern me the most. I think what would concern me the most is that he didn't tell anybody.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he kind of tried to, at least the way I understanding the story as it's coming out is like, he like tried to hide this from the Padres.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I get it. Like, you screwed up, but like, don't compound the mistake. Like, call the general manager. Yeah. Call them. Hey, I effed up. This is what I did. Like, I hurt myself. Yada yada.
So the new story on that is he doesn't want surgery to fix it. He's trying to just see if it heals. So
he's trying to get like another opinion.
Possibly, or just
Jesus.
see if it
I
heals
mean, I
by
tell you
itself
what,
and not come back.
Man, if this kid's career gets like somewhat derailed, that would be typical
a swift
Padres.
kick to the
That would be
nuts for the
so
Padres.
bad.
Right.
That'd be
Absolutely.
so bad.
I mean,
why is he trying to monkey with it?
I don't know.
Like, why
Guy's
is he
got a-
trying to do something like that?
guy's got a $340 million contract in front of him. All sorts of endorsement
Unbelievable.
opportunities. Could be the face of baseball, open any door he wants, and he's going to monkey around with a wrist injury. Like it makes no
wrist
sense.
injury.
Go get right, man. Go get right.
Right. I don't. Nick's just popping in and out here.
Just go get right. Well, in breaking news, Andrew McCutchen signed with the Brewers just an hour ago.
Oh, is that so? And I hear the Rockies are making a real firm push at Chris Bryant.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. I figured he'd go to Philadelphia for sure. They need a right-handed bat, and Bryce Harper's screaming about bringing another bat in. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Brian makes a good point. This is like Jay Williams back in the day.
Yeah.
Lost his whole career over a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, crazy. Then Pete Alonso on the way to spring training. There was a guy that ran a red light, and he's in like a Ford Super Duty, and his truck rolled 3 times. And his wife put a video on Instagram, and like actually saw like the damage to the truck. It's insane, but Pete Alonso just gets out and walks away. Like
he's a freaking polar bear, man.
Right? Insanity. But yeah, it was like 2 things that happened today. I'm like, what is going on?
Not only that, but Pete Alonso is practicing tomorrow. He is healthy and practicing tomorrow.
Right. Crazy.
I mean, he came out. I saw just a quick statement, I guess, if you will, from him today, just being like, he's just like grateful to be alive. He's like, to be that close to like a situation where like I could have lost my life, like yada yada. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess he got T-boned, he said. Is that what I thought? That's
I think
crazy. So. Good Lord.
Yeah.
I'll be good. I'll be good to take 200 swings tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh. Well, that's the scary part. Like he's like, whatever. But interesting news out of Mets camp, staying with the Mets, where Jacob deGrom announced to the world today that he's actually going to exercise his opt-out clause at the end of the season. He'd like to stay in New York, but will opt out and see what his options are.
I'm fine with that.
Yep. Man,
I mean, this is a dangerous thing with Jacob deGrom though too, because Jacob deGrom is not known for being a horse that throws 40 games a year. No. Like, I mean, you are already saying you're going to opt out. I mean, I guess he does have the player option, so I guess if something happens, I guess he could opt in.
You could choose not to use it.
Right. I mean, I guess that is always an option, but I don't have a problem. Like, I think to me that's a good thing. It tells me that Jacob deGrom feels healthy. It tells me that Jacob deGrom is confident that he's going to come back 100%, have himself a good year. Because if you're not sure about how healthy you're going to be, why are you trying to test free agency? Now, again, we'll wait. But I find that is at least a good sign as a Mets fan.
Yeah. I mean, when healthy last year, the guy was 7-2 with a 1.08 ERA. I mean,
he was the most fun guy. He was the most fun guy to tune in and watch. It was unbelievable.
Crazy.
I mean,
then also.
So the irony of it all is he finished 9th in the Cy Young voting last year and only made 15 starts.
I know.
Only made 15 starts. Oh, God.
The Mets also traded for Chris Bassett. So that's a good 3-4 starter there. You still have Taijuan Walker, who was the all-star, representative last year.
You got Scherzer and DeGrom headlining that with those guys behind him. I mean, my goodness.
That's going to be probably, if not the best staff, one of the top 3 for sure.
It'll be right up there. Absolutely. Yeah.
If I'm in the NL
East, we're talking barring injuries, but
if I'm a hitter in the NL East, I'm not going to want to see those guys on the schedule. Just
no wonder Freddie Freeman wants out.
Yeah, no. I mean, at least he's left-handed, but still, I would not want to face those guys in a 3-game series. You might as well leave your bat in the dugout.
Absolutely. So let's go to that trade with the Braves here. Matt Olson goes to the Braves for Kristen Pache, who's their number 1 prospect, and the number 2 prospect, Shane Langeliers. Like, that's way too rich for me for Matt Olson. I'm sorry. Matt Olson's a nice hitter, nice lefty. He doesn't have the left-handed swing that Brian Sawyer has, but I mean, he's up there. But I mean, goodness gracious. The 1 and 2 prospects in your organization for Matt Olson is not.
I mean, I mean, in order for that to even make any kind of sense, I mean, you're bringing in Matt Olson and then you're going to extend Matt Olson for a period of time to which
Forever.
Matt Olson now becomes almost a quasi like face of the Braves.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he has to be your number one best player or anything like that, but like you don't do that for a guy to play like a year or two. Right.
No,
I mean, like you're giving that up and then you're going to end up extending Matt Olson, which I don't know.
That move, as we were talking about,
too much for me.
Yeah, that move, as we were talking about today, just reeks of desperation. Like it feels like, and even Alex Anthopoulos said it. We don't think Freddie's coming back. Freeman's we're getting indications Freddie's not coming back. We're moving on. But I felt like that was gonna be one of those like announce the trade of Matt Olson, then like you're gonna hear Freddie Freeman signed like 2 hours later.
Yeah,
right.
We still haven't heard Freddie Freeman signing, but it's clear the Braves are not expecting him to come back. Yeah. Which I hate the idea of Freddie Freeman in a different uniform. I just hate it. But
me too.
I honestly don't hate it unless it's a Yankee or a Dodger uniform. Then I'm gonna absolutely hate it. I do not want him to go to New York or LA. Like,
well, and before we came on, I was talking about the fact I've read in at least 3 places, and even updated now that Toronto is very much in the running for Freddie Freeman, which makes sense. He is Canadian. He played for Team Canada in the World Baseball Classic. But Toronto wasn't even in on him yesterday. And now apparently there's a number of sources saying they think it's almost a done deal with Toronto and that he's in. And then 5 minutes later, the Blue Jays are in on Schwarber, which makes me think they're not in on Freeman anymore. So I don't think there's any sort of clear indication of where Freddie Freeman's going. It sounds like it's down to the Dodgers, the Yankees, and potentially the Blue Jays. I don't like any of those places for Freddie. Toronto at least makes sense, but for Toronto, what do you do with Freddie? You've got Vlad. I mean, I guess you make somebody your permanent DH and flip-flop those guys back and forth, but you got a lot of bats in that lineup that are fighting for positions.
I just feel like this next 24 to 48 hours is going to be absolutely insane because all these GMs are running around like chickens with their heads cut off trying to get these guys signed. Like,
as a Red Sox fan is kind of what makes it a little frustrating. Like, and I get it's not Heim's way. It's no matter where he's been. Like, it's not Heim's way to go wheeling and dealing. So like, we can't really expect him to. But like, it seems like every other team in like baseball is like out there with their names out there trying to like make a move. I mean, Jake Diekman. I like Jake Diekman.
Yep.
I mean, like Jake Diekman is a nice back end of the bullpen. Lefty, hard throw, devastating slider, tough on righties and tough on lefties. Like, I like the Jake Diekman signing.
Matt Strom. Does Matt Strom move the needle for you?
But I mean, we got
nice little piece, but
we got spots to fill here, Heim.
Right.
I mean, again, he knows what he's doing. I get that, and it's never been his teams are never out there forefront of the wheeling and dealing. So it's probably unfair for me to say that, but like. It's like, dude, come on. Like, everyone else seems to be out there at least trying to do something.
I mean, that's the thing, right? We still don't know what Bobby Dahlbeck is. Christian Arroyo is Christian Arroyo, I guess.
I mean, Tristan Cassis is having good
right.
Double
He's
A
going to come up for sure.
Yeah.
But then we did sign Rich Hill. That's true.
Yeah,
but we're going to lose X next year. Xander Bogaerts is gone. There's no way he stays.
I don't think so. And again, Scott Boras is notorious for doing this with his clients. I mean, like I think when he signed the extension that he signed a few years ago, I think it was like almost like with the understanding that when 2023 comes around, like Xander's testing the market.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was probably like the understanding as it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why we heard. Oh, sorry, Harrison. Go ahead.
No, I'm just to your point. I was if I'm Xander Bogaerts, I'm watching the free agent contracts given out this year. I am absolutely going to the market next year.
Yeah.
Which is why 100%. I think that played into Jacob deGrom saying that. I mean, Jacob deGrom looked at what the Mets just gave Max Scherzer.
I know.
And I think that's why he's like, I want to stay in New York. So essentially he's like, listen, I'm going to opt out, and then I'm going to come to Uncle Stevie, and I'm going to tell Uncle Stevie I want $1 billion, and he's going to pay it.
Yep.
Right? Like, I mean, it's not that hard.
Well, and with the competitive balance tax being pushed up over the next few years, I mean, these teams are going to have more money to spend. You can now drop, if that went up, I want to say 20, 25 million bucks. I mean, now these guys can drop, another pretty big name into that rotation or that lineup without getting hit by the tax. So a guy like DeGrom would be silly not to say, well, I'm scheduled to make 30 million. I want to make 40, and I want over the next, X number of years.
Oh,
so
agreed,
this
100%.
is my thing. This is my thing with the Red Sox, though, with Xander Bogaerts. Like, I don't know why you would try to bring Trevor Story in and tell him he's playing second base. Like, move Bogaerts if you know he's not coming back. Like, sorry about it.
Well,
like, if
I
move him to third, I move. No.
Or
Like,
mean
I
move
move his
positions?
position. I move his position. You play third, Story plays second, Devers plays first, Dahlback DHs. Like, it is what it is. Like, you're not interested in staying with us, then here. Like, and then we trade him at the deadline, which we might do anyways.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox believe either one of two things is going to happen. One is that they'll end up keeping Xander on a long-term extension because they'll realize he wants to stay. Or two, depending on how things are this season, he could end up being, trade deadline bait. But either way, a pissed off Xander is bad for either scenario.
Right.
So I feel like the Red Sox are walking delicately to say, okay, look, let's not completely alienate this dude because we may need him to take a trade and we may actually want to go back at him with a long-term extension. So they kind of have to play nice. But if I'm Trevor Story, I'm completely insulted by that offer because I never said I'd play second base. So you basically told Trevor Story, we're not that serious.
No, you're not telling him you're not that serious. You're not, though. I mean, you're up front. You put your cards up front. Now, you don't have to, but you tell Trevor Story, hey, man, like, this is what our thought process is. Like, we see you fitting at second base. We see you fitting in the middle of our lineup. We see you as a really good middle of the infield duo with Xander. And if we can't work something out with Xander, you're our shortstop of the future. Hopefully, if we can, you and Xander play well together, you find a home in second base. Like, I don't think why would that piss off Trevor Story? Unless he's like dead set on only being a shortstop. And if that's the case, then you just move on.
Right.
Well, I think that's what it is. I mean, these guys,
right, but
these guys view shortstop as a way higher value position. Like Correa said out of the gate, I'm a shortstop, period. Don't even make me offers for other positions. I won't even entertain them. I mean, Story hasn't done the same thing, but I think all these guys that are shortstops have that chip on their shoulder that I'm the shortstop. I'm the most important infielder, and I don't want my value to be degraded by moving over to second base. I don't see second base as a real, step back from shortstop, but most of these guys for some reason do, and they view shortstop as the key role, and they feel less valuable.
But that's something I would like to know about a player up front. Now, I'm not in front office, but if I'm pursuing a player that has that attitude and mentality, that's probably not a player that I want coming in here.
For sure.
Right. Particularly for what you're looking for right now. Like, you're looking for a guy that can do multiple things. You're looking for a guy that can play either middle infield position. You're looking for a guy that can be flexible in the lineup. I mean, those guys that sit there and say, I'm only a shortstop are also the same guys that go, I only hit second or third in the lineup. So it's like, well, like, now you're just going to come in and dictate to the team. Like, sorry, you're not that good.
Yeah. Right. I agree.
So, I mean, if that's the way he feels, like you said, Correa feels that way, that he said that, if that's how Story is, then it's better we know it now and then move on. Go figure it out.
And that's why I think Correa and Story are both still out there because, I think everybody questions, Story is not a great defensive shortstop. He's a pretty good defensive shortstop. I'd say Correa's a better defensive shortstop, but neither one of those guys projects long-term as a shortstop. There's going to be a few years and they're going to have to move somewhere else, which is the typical progression. And I think a lot of teams are nervous about paying that kind of money for a guy who's, eventually going to get pushed over to second base and may not like it, especially if there's opt-outs built into the contract, et cetera.
Sorry. So this next trade is like a two-step trade. So just hang with me here.
Yeah.
Mitch Garver, the catcher for the Minnesota Twins, was traded to the Rangers for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, which both, Rangers needed a catcher. Twins needed a middle infielder. And then the Twins flipped Kiner-Falefa and Josh Donaldson to the Yankees for Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. I mean, that's probably been one of the biggest trades so far. And I think both teams benefited from it, really. I mean,
I agree. I think so too.
The Twins get an everyday catcher in Gary Sanchez and an offensive, whatever.
I mean, Gary, there will be days where Gary won't catch it. Like, that's the crazy thing about Gary. Like, there will be days where he's back there and he just won't. You're like, Gary, you're a catcher. You have to catch it. Like, that's your
Oh,
job.
so bad. He's
I mean, he's
But
terrible.
he's in Minnesota for the power, though. He's not in there for the defense.
I get that, but let's qualify that. Let's not call him a catcher. He's in there so we can hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he won't catch it.
No.
No, I mean, I think Gary Sanchez is a hitter. He is a horrendous, god-awful catcher.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean,
the one thing that I take.
Oh, sorry, go.
Yeah, sorry. That's just a tough one for me because like I've always loved Josh Donaldson. I know I was kind of knocking on him, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, when he was like his approach for hitting. Like that's his approach and it's worked for him and it got him to the major leagues. My issue with that is not Josh Donaldson. My issue is that like now people are taking that as gospel, but we've talked about that enough. I love Josh Donaldson. I think he has some kind of like swaggy attitude to him, but like he backs it up, but like he seems like a great guy. His teammates for every team he's played for seem to love Josh Donaldson. Like I've never heard a teammate be like anything bad about him. And I just hate now that he's in a Yankee uniform. Like that really bothers me.
Yeah. So
because he's a guy like I don't want to root against. I don't want to root against Josh Donaldson.
Right.
I'm actually surprised. The Yankees are going to pay Donaldson between this year and next year $50 million. The contract they absorbed with him just makes me scratch my head.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
It's crazy. I mean, yeah.
But he's not the black hole that Gary Sanchez can be at times. I mean, let's call it what it is. Gary Sanchez had a couple of good years, and then he's like a 200 hitter with occasional power, and a horrendous catcher. I mean, Donaldson is a massive improvement in that lineup around Judge and Stanton, the guy who's actually going to make contact.
Right.
Still strikes out a fair amount, make contact, good power, hit the gaps. But Gary Sanchez is a massive black hole that was batting in the friggin' 8-hole for most of last season because the guy couldn't hit anymore.
Yeah, that's why I don't
completely lost it.
That's why I don't understand why the Twins necessarily got rid of Mitch Garver, because he was one of the top catchers for a while offensively too, I believe. And he could actually, provide a glove behind the dish, unless his contract is coming up, and that's probably a reason to trade him. But
the Yankees didn't get him.
No, but the Twins traded Garver away, and then they're like, "Oh shit, we don't have a catcher."
Yeah.
No, I think that was planned. I mean, it was planned. They had a plan.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be shocked if Gary Sanchez gets moved again. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he's not their answer at catcher.
Right.
Oh, he's probably a DH. If anything.
I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if the guy they were going for is that young infielder from Texas. Like that was the guy,
Yeah. Kiner Falefa.
Yeah. So I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing. Like I'm excited for the next 10 days, right? Because we got teams that are showing up to spring training, and then we just got all these guys signing, and there's been a decent amount of trades. That's probably been the best trade, but there has been some trades that have been pulled off, and I certainly don't think it's the last one.
Absolutely.
No, there's a lot of guys, like you said, spring training is starting. The regular season starts here in 3.5 weeks. We got a lot of guys that aren't even signed yet. They still gotta sign. They gotta report. The clock is ticking for some of these guys to be able to have a chance to really get ready for the season.
Another one I wanted to bring to the forefront: the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of California finally made a free agent move. Kurt Suzuki.
Good old Kurt.
I was gonna say sort of.
Kurt Suzuki. So they signed him. The Blue Jays did sign Kikuchi from the Mariners. A nice lefty there. So that's another arm in that, with Ryu and, Nate Pearson, if he has a decent year finally with them, that's another arm for them. And then Carlos Rondon signed with the Giants for 2 years and $44 million. I mean, talk about cashing out on. I think we talked about this in our text. Was cashing out on a free agent year. He was mediocre, had a really good year this year, and rewarded with $44 million.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like I said to you guys in the text, I think the one difference with Rodon moving forward is where we saw how swing and miss he can be.
Yeah.
And he finally developed that curveball last year that he was really able to use as a not just a strikeout pitch, but I'm in a jam and I need to throw a good pitch. And so he can be really lethal. It might end up totally backfiring on me, but I think this 2 years for 44 in San Francisco is going to look really good at the end of that second year. You know, I think he's going to finish in the Cy Young conversation this year in the National League.
Yep. They also signed Carlos Martinez from the Cardinals as well.
Yeah.
To help with their bullpens.
Right.
That's a good signing as well.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a good pickup.
Yep.
Carlos Martinez is a great guy, and he can come in the middle of the game, late in the game. He's got really good stuff.
And he can spot start. I'm pretty sure he came up as a starter too. So I mean, like,
he did
for sure. This one was interesting to me. Nelson Cruz signed 2 years with the Nationals.
Yeah, he was the first DH to go to the National League.
Universal DH.
I mean, I'm interested in that signing because, like, I mean, I thought he would have probably wanted to go to possibly a contender.
Contender, yeah, me too.
I mean, he's 43, right? 41, 42,
but then again, this is classic Nelson Cruz written all over it. Signs in Washington to just, I don't know, maybe they offered him the most money at the time.
Yeah.
This guy will be traded
and
at the
2 years.
This guy will be traded at the trade deadline to a contender.
Yeah.
Right.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, because he'll probably have freaking 18 or 20 bombs at the deadline, and
he's going to be the name that go, oh, you know who could really use that guy is enter team name here. Like, he will be moved at the deadline.
See, I think it was more, not so much the money as the 2 years. Like, who's going to give a 42-year-old guy a 2-year contract? Right. Probably not many teams.
No, it's true.
I think
it's true.
I think that was probably part of the poll there.
Yeah, from what I'm reading right now, it looks like it's a 1 year, $15 million deal with an option.
Team, looks like it's got to be a club option, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like it's really just it's a mutual option for 23.
They might as well have signed him to a contract saying we will trade you at the trade deadline. I mean that is a tradable. Right. That's what that contract is. That contract is to be traded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a 1 year contract, $15 million. It's a mutual option for 23. He'll earn $12 million if they exercise it, and if they don't exercise it, he gets a $3 million buyout.
Wow. Must be
so
nice
it's
to
basically
be
I wish someone would buy me out for $3 million.
God
I know,
damn, man, me too.
It's basically a 1 year deal, and if he still has anything left, they can keep him. But
hey, why don't you
agree
come
with you, Sean.
work here? Why don't you come work here for $15 million? If we don't like you anymore, we'll give you $3 million to leave.
Yeah,
I'll sign that paper.
We're gonna give you a big bag of cash to just go away.
I'll sign that paper.
Goodness gracious!
I'll tell you what. I'll be so bad you'll get rid of me, and I'll cash that $3 million check.
Yeah,
and feel good about
exactly.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Wow. So yeah, let's see. Oh, White Sox signed Joe Kelly and Josh Harrison. So a couple veterans to help with that young White Sox team. So I mean, Joe Kelly helps with that bullpen. You got Liam Hendricks in there. You got
Kelly around a bunch of young players scares me. That guy is a nut. And I
agree. I almost wore my Joe Kelly Fight Club shirt.
He's a great teammate, but he's a terrible influence.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I don't know.
It's an interesting choice, but I think he'll be good for them. He's, when Joe Kelly's on, he has got some incredible stuff.
Yeah. Andrelton Simmons signed with the Chicago Cubs. So for a while when he signed, like people thought like, oh, Correa's not going to go there, but the Cubs quickly, like I hadn't even closed the app yet, and they already came through. And they're like, we're not out on Carlos Correa. Like just because we signed Simmons doesn't mean we're out.
Which means they're out on Carlos Correa.
Right.
You don't come out and say it that quick unless you're out on Carlos Correa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's like the president came out and he was like, we will not be extending student loans. And then like a day later they extended student loans like 3 more months.
Right.
Like they're out on Correa.
And Jed Hoyer was saying all the right things today, saying they're happy with the middle infield right now. We brought in Simmons. We think he's elite. Jed Hoyer said all the right things, but I don't think they're done. I think that
elite.
I think that they could start the season right now and they would be better than last year, but I think that they're still missing that piece and they're not out on Correa yet.
Yeah. Then the last one is Clayton Kershaw stays in LA.
Back with the Dodgers.
I mean, we kind of figured that since Stafford's there, he wasn't going to leave.
Yeah. So. Give him $17 million to stay. I mean, that's a lot of money for a guy who's you don't know what you're going to get from him. Yeah, but you can't insult the guy and offer him some lowball deal. So they did what was right for him. I'll be curious to see what they get out of him. And not only that, but when you look at that rotation, there's they don't really need a lot out of him. You know, he can kind of float
Right.
around the bottom of the rotation and win a few games here and there. They'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
right. So
I agree.
it's that's why it's a no-brainer to bring a guy like that back. He's
Yep.
got to be a calming influence on the rest
Sure.
of the staff, right? He's a veteran presence. He's a guy that's been there. He kind of, he's more of the veteran leader.
Yep.
If they get the bare minimum out of him, then that's worth it.
It's fine.
Yeah. I
Totally
mean,
fine.
it doesn't matter when it comes to playoffs. He doesn't have to pitch because the bullpen just pitches for him.
Right,
So,
for sure.
I mean,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's all I had for free agency stuff. Oh, I did miss one, Jose Iglesias in Colorado, but that doesn't really move the needle that much. But
No.
yeah. So before we go, the 4 big free agents that I have here is I got Correa, Freeman, Story, and Jorge Soler to still go, and Jock Peterson Jock Peterson's like a nice.
He's not
platoon
on that
player,
level. Those 4 though.
but he's not on the level. You're right.
Brian
thanks,
is
Brian.
not done with this yet.
We're gonna let this simmer for a whole week. We'll see what that looks like next Monday.
Absolutely.
Where does Carlos Correa go? You only just say a team and then move on. Where does he go, Harrison?
Cubs.
Sean?
Yanks.
Ugh.
Ouch.
I don't want it, but I mean that's what I'm
know.
seeing.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, I see them going out and they shore up third base with Josh Donaldson, and then they go out. They just throw the Brinks truck at Carlos Correa, and they're going to think that they have A-Rod Jeter back again for the left side of the infield. They're going to try and run that.
I am kind of with you. I think he goes to the Yankees. And it sucks. Freddie Freeman, where does he go, Sean?
Oh, where do I want him, or where does he go?
Nope. Where does he go? Where does he go?
Oh, shit. Dodgers.
I think that was where I was leaning to.
I'm going to go Toronto to be different. I
I'd
hope
like Toronto. I wouldn't mind. I'd put it this way. I wouldn't mind Toronto.
So this is my thinking. If they miss out on Correa, the Yankees will sign Freeman.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going.
It's fair.
He has 0 shot to stay in Atlanta. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Trevor Story, where does he end up, Harrison?
I think he ends up in New York.
You think he ends up in New York? That's interesting.
I can see him going. I think the Yankees will miss out on Correa, and they'll go get Story.
That's a great take. I like that. I don't mind that at all. What about you, Sean? Story?
I don't know. I really don't have much of a read on Trevor Story at all. I'd love to see him kind of swallow that pride. Maybe the pride we don't know he has, but assume he does. But and come play second base in Boston, man. You'll love it here. Boston fans would love Trevor Story. The kind of game that he plays, his game would fit very well here. The fans would love him. And I mean, that middle infield for this year, if this is our last year was in, that would be an insane middle infield. So that's what I want. I can't get a read on him though. I have no idea.
So here's my hot take. I think Seattle signs Story, and then Seattle turns around and signs Chris Bryant since they just traded for Jesse Winker, and Seattle makes a run.
Yeah,
okay.
I wouldn't mind that at all.
Chris Bryant, Trevor Story in Seattle.
I wouldn't mind seeing that at all.
And what's interesting right now is there's a lot of rumors linking Story to the Cardinals because of Arenado, and then also linking him to the Twins. I don't see why he would go to the Twins. I don't either. I don't follow that one. I don't see the Twins making that kind of a signing either. This guy's 29. He's going to want big money that they don't have.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all right. So I said Bryant in Seattle. Where do you think Chris Bryant goes?
Well, I've been seeing right before we started the show. I've been seeing a lot of that Colorado is making Chris Bryant their number one priority is Chris Bryant. So I'll go with Colorado.
I'm going to go with Philadelphia. Bryce Harper's screaming for a bat. He needs a right-handed bat to back him up. He and Chris Bryant are close.
Yeah,
I think Bryce Harper is going to hold his breath till he's blue in the face and make the Phillies sign Bryant.
I mean, I would love it to be the New York Mets, and I've heard that the New York Mets are still trying. Who knows how close? But I would love the Mets, but I'll stick with Colorado.
Yep.
Anthony Rizzo. Where does he go?
Yankees.
Boston.
I'm with Sean.
I'd love him to come to Boston.
I think he comes to Boston, especially if the Yankees end up with Freeman. I think Rizzo comes to Boston. I would love that. He makes full circle, comes back to Beantown. Yep. Jorge Soler, there's been links around him Boston too for him. I would
the Red Sox,
not mind that.
The Red Sox have to make up the loss of Renfroe's bat. I love JBJ. Don't get me wrong. He's a lot of fun to watch. Amazing defensively, but the guy is a friggin' black hole most days with his bat. He belongs as a fourth outfielder, defensive specialist, pinch runner, limit the at-bats, get him on the field. I think that Soler makes a lot of sense with the Red Sox. That right-handed power at Fenway, fly ball hitter would be great.
Yep. Love it.
I don't love Soler, but I think it would be a good move.
Oh, I do.
After what he did in the World Series and the playoffs, I'll take that Jorge Soler any day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But,
I think that's the one thing Soler's got going for him is when he's hot. Holy crap!
Yeah,
the guy mashes.
Yeah. Are there any other big free agents I'm missing? I think that was.
I don't think so.
I think that was pretty much it. I mean, is that it? I mean, we didn't go over that much, but holy smokes!
That a lot of that happened in the last literally 48 hours. It's been nuts.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, my poor phone is can you please stop? Turn the notifications off.
Yeah,
please.
The phone's oh great, baseball's back. My summer's great.
Yeah, right. But
there should be a lot happening this week. These big names have got to get into camp here to get ready. Yeah. So I think you're going to see some signings here coming up.
Absolutely.
I do too.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week and get roasted some more on our bracket as we finish that up.
Can't wait.
And then we'll talk about our free agency picks and we'll throw out our question of the week tomorrow. And we will see you guys all next Monday at 8. And also I will release more information about Fantasy League and getting that up and running.
Perfect.
All right. So we'll see you guys next Monday at 8.